Rocking them over. Yeah, it really is a water.
That would be colorful.
I always open it public. What kind of talking that?
You know, we never have.
Because one of those is red light going.
He is one of the.
That's all I know.
Helping him with that.
And I don't know about this
Is the
one.
red light on?
No, I don't think
In the back.
no, I'm just making sure.
Oh,
Let's try this guy.
Kathy was having difficulty making it work.
Well, they were in the process of changing something.
Oh, they're on.
Oh, there you go.
They're on.
Hey, how about that?
Green lights.
Oh, awesome.
Doesn't work. Have the techie go down. That's just what.
It's 6:02. Call the meeting to order. Please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. My normal speech. If you have a cell phone, please either mute it or turn it off. Thank you. Approval of treasurer warrants. Payroll warrants for March 15th.
I'll move the payroll warrants for March 15, 2019.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Thank you. Accounts payable warrants for March 19th, 2019.
I move that we approve the accounts payable warrants for March 19th, 2019.
I'll second it. All those in favor? Thank you. Approval of minutes for February 19th. And we have a full transcript in the back of word for word is what was said, Ben, like you requested.
Yes, I like that very much.
Okay.
If I might, the whole issue, Mr. Rhines, was that you thought, and some of the board members thought that if the action that I was asked to do somehow implied support corridor and anything else. And
That really wasn't quite my complaint.
okay, it was.
Having read it over, I mean, he wanted to apply for broadband and what have you. And I didn't like the idea of us benefiting at the expense of the citizens of Western Maine. And I still don't.
Yeah, if you look at the last sequence of my communication with Mr. Baskin, all I said was I offered indication of interest in the AllNet initiative, subject to a more detailed presentation at a later date in a formal vote of the Wiscasset Board of Selectmen. That, for me, that the board of the town was not in any way committed to written agenda. It was just purely an expression of interest, subject to further discussion and a formal meeting, a vote of the board. So I just had a good chase with that. And I understand what you're saying. Good.
Okay. So, are you all set with those minutes?
As far as the minutes, yes.
Okay. You don't want to have another vote? Because I know you did that.
Have a motion.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. Last week you wanted to have another vote on that particular issue.
If the board would revisit the issue, I would certainly change my vote just to go on record as being opposed to it. With what we were attempting to do.
Does anybody want to revisit that particular vote? I mean, to me, it was a 5-0 vote, giving authorization to John to talk to Doug Basson from Alna, not make any promises, concessions, or anything. It was just a conversation and report back to the board. That was how I took that issue. So as far as I'm concerned, the vote should stand. Yes, Bob?
It would appear that John did as directed. It's very hard to undo that now.
That's what I'm thinking.
My point is, I just wanted one record is that I really regret having taken that vote. And at least somewhere in the minutes, I would like it to be reflected that I regret having taken that vote. If we can at least do that, then fine.
Okay.
In what, which minutes?
Well, we can put it in tonight's.
Okay,
Yes, because we're gonna have to vote, we haven't voted on that one yet.
negative one.
So you want to amend the minutes to state that you,
I regret that I had voted for that motion originally.
okay, all right. Okay, anybody want to approve the minutes as amended,
So moved. Which minutes are you talking about now?
the 19th?
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. A motion to approve the minutes of March 12th. Do we have any corrections? Yes, Kim?
On the brown tail moth caterpillar thing, I had asked if we could post that on our website, and I think we should put that, and everyone thought, or you said that you would, and I think that should be in the minutes.
Okay.
Okay,
Please.
all right,
That's not a correction. Is that a correction?
yes.
It's sort of like an addition.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot to-
Under number 2.
So two.
Kim requested to have it put on the Wiscasset website, the town website.
Okay, I will do it.
Thank you.
Sorry about overlooking.
Any other corrections?
Move the minutes of March 12th as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? 5-0. Tonight, we do have a special presentation. It's the Maine Municipal Association's essay contest winner presentation to Grace Green. Could the board please come up front here? And Ms. Green?
I'm coming.
I'm slow, I'm coming. Well, first of all, congratulations for winning. And you do have this, her family is all here tonight, her grandmother, I think. You have the Maine Municipal Association 7th grade essay contest 2019. Certificate of Achievement, Grace Green, Damascus Montessori School. Signed by Stephen W. Goh, Executive Director, Maine Municipal Association. And you get to go shopping. You got a gift card. So you have fun. $250 as a matter of fact. Hey, let you and I go shopping.
Nothing to argue about.
Maybe we should just go home right now.
On a good note?
Yeah.
Good idea.
On a high note, we'll go home. Okay, committee appointments. We have Donald James, Shellfish Committee, and Susan Robson, Waterfront Committee.
I'll move Donald James, Shellfish Committee.
Second.
All those in favor? Sue Robson,
I'll move Sue Robson. Waterfront Committee.
do I have a second?
Sue Robson has volunteered for our town for as long as I've been here and always put forth a great effort for the people of Wiscasset, and I really feel like very strongly that the volunteers for the many committees that we have in our town are the strength of our town. They're the want, of this tapestry. So we're lucky for every volunteer that we get. I hope that somebody will second this.
I will second it.
But I think, I don't know about the rest of the board, but we did receive an email from Sue, at least I did, stating that she was resigning. And that's why I was kind of shocked to see this on the agenda. So she must have had a change of heart.
Thankfully.
So I will second it. Yes.
We, at least 2 meetings ago, I think it was a couple of meetings ago, Margot Rafter was approved or to be appointed to the Waterfront Committee. So, I assumed at that time that she was replacing Sue Robson on the committee because she had already resigned. So I don't know whether this committee doesn't need another person or what the story is. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Okay. Yes, Judy. Please stand. I'm sorry.
I need this too.
Yeah.
But then you can't see me.
I can hear you.
Margot was already on the committee. I think that was a renewal.
Okay.
And Sue had some frustrations and she worked through those and with some support behind her did change her mind. And I'm certainly glad that she did. She has spearheaded a lot of activities down there. And she really is dedicated to that waterfront.
Thank you. Okay, with that being said, all those in favor of Sue Robson for the Waterfront Committee? Opposed? 3-2. Thank you. We have no public hearings. The next is the public comment on non-agenda items. At each regular selectman meeting, there will be time devoted to any resident or taxpayer of the town of Wiscasset to address the selectmen regarding any item that is not on the agenda for that meeting. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person, and there will be a 30-minute maximum. Is there any public comment? Marty?
Hi, my name is Marty Fox, I live in Wiscasset. And last week I spoke against the transmission line for CMP. And actually I spoke with Ben this morning. And I found out some other information regarding that. That there was actually on the New England Clean Energy Connect website, it says the town of Wiscasset supports it. And also with it is a letter from Marian Anderson dated September 21st of last year. The town of Wiscasset voted last night to support Central Maine's proposed project, New England Clean Energy Connect. We heard the details of this project, how it will follow along an existing transmission corridor and therefore minimize environmental impact, how it will tap existing infrastructure that New England is utilizing and therefore leverage recent investment in our electric grid, how it will provide economic and environmental benefits to our region of the country, and how it will include upgrades to existing infrastructure in our beautiful coastal Maine town. We have a long-standing positive collaborative partnership with Central Maine Power. They own and operate significant electric transmission equipment in Wiscasset, and they do this very well. They are responsive to our community needs, reliable and professional, and it has been a pleasure working with CMP over the years. Wiscasset has a history of being an energy hub in Maine. We are proud and pleased to think that we will continue in this capacity and be an important part of the clean energy proposals. We hope that help in offering a solution to New England's needs to tap into clean renewable power. Therefore, it is with much enthusiasm that we send this letter and offer our sincere hope that New England Clean Energy Connect is selected by your committee. At the last meeting, it didn't seem like the board was aware of this letter, or
May I ask, interrupt you, when was that letter written?
September 21st. I'm sorry, 2017.
2017.
17.
So, I'm sure people
Doesn't go back.
don't remember.
Well, I know, I went back, I know I've said that
Yeah.
I don't remember voting on it, that we have not. I will go back and check the minutes, because I did go back all the way to June to make sure that we had not voted on it. But that's why I want to know what date this was, because
Yeah.
I do not remember voting on it.
I was
That had to be
last year.
2018.
Because I was on the board then, and I don't,
No,
John was here last,
was I on the board then?
yes.
You were on the board, I went back to June of
John hasn't-
2018.
John's only been here for a month and a half.
No, John Carroll.
Ah, I thought you meant this guy.
No, John Carroll was here last August.
But I do want to go back and verify, because I don't personally remember ever taking the vote. I don't remember doing that.
but instead
But
of
like I
taking,
said, my mind isn't always there.
instead of taking up your time tonight, I'd like you to put it on the agenda for next week.
To do what?
Well, whether or not the board now supports, or doesn't support. A lot of towns now are rescinding their support because there's a lot of new information out. And you see some of that last week. You could review that. I have another piece of information to add to it, but I didn't have time to make copies of it. So I'd like to propose that be an agenda item for next week.
See, and I do the agenda. The board will decide on whether we want to do that or not.
Thank you. I have another meeting now, so, yeah, if you have any questions.
Yes, Catherine?
It's not a question, but referring to the time that you think the board voted on this, whether it was 2017 or 2018, I remember at least a year ago or more, John Carroll was here, and it was rather informal. He gave a presentation, which was, I think, an initial
Yes, it was.
presentation, and I'm not sure of the date, but he did come, and there was some discussion, but it was rather informal, and no vote, I don't believe, was
We have
taken.
never, as far as I know, we
They
never.
have talked about it, and some said, yeah, whatever, but there was, I don't remember a vote, unless it happened longer ago than before I came.
According to the minutes for that night, there was no vote. He came to say that they were going to respond to an RFP. So they were completing a grant application or completing a proposal and would like to have the support of the board for the proposal. And there was no vote.
That's right.
There was, this April 21st, 2017?
September, the board meeting was September 19th, 2017.
Okay. As I said, I don't ever remember taking that vote.
2017, yeah, 9/19/17.
What was the date on that letter?
12/21/2017.
I thought you said September 21st.
12/20, December.
September.
September, I'm sorry, September.
And that's on their website, so,
Over a year.
Yeah, they
A
were
lot of-
just applying and hoping to get selected. I was.
Well, as you can tell, we did not vote.
right. A lot of things have transpired since then with CMP. So I would like the select board to reconsider their vote and see how you stand now. We have new people on the select board. And do you want this letter to remain
Yes,
on?
yes, if I could have that letter, I'd appreciate it.
Whose website you said it was on?
And I'm thinking there's some claims here too about in fact. Let me get the other page. But kind of look from here.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Jim, you had a comment?
I attended that meeting, I recollect it, and he was soliciting for the town to do a draft letter of approval, but the town, the board never voted on it. So I suppose the town manager must have just taken it upon himself to write that draft.
Yes, that's what it sounds like.
That's what it is.
We will discuss it and
Okay, thank you.
possibly might be on the agenda next week.
Sorry, I have to leave. I have another-
Next, in 2
In
weeks.
2 weeks.
In 2
When are
weeks.
we gonna discuss whether we, I would like to see that on the agenda, if nothing else. I would like to see that removed from people's websites, because it's not accurate. If nothing else.
Yes, Bob?
Are we discussing that now?
I think we should take that up under other board business,
Oh,
not
okay,
during
that's
this
fine.
time.
That's
This is
fine.
time for public comment. Is that okay? Anybody else, public comment?
Sorry, I don't have any.
Kim? Before you do, Grace, if you and your family, you don't have to sit through the whole meeting if you don't want to. It might be a little boring.
Sometimes
So
it's
if you'd like to leave, you can.
We can be entertained. We'll hear all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Hi, George.
Okay.
So hopefully this time is the right time of year to bring this up. I have brought this up before. I would really love, if it is legally possible, to put some sort of statement on the town warrant so people fully understand, or at least better understand, what is happening when they vote on budget items. And it could be very lengthy and time-consuming, or it could be something as simple as this statement, which is the 2020 proposed budget of X is X higher or lower than last year's approved budget. If you vote yes on all budget items, your property taxes will increase or decrease by X percent. And I would also think that putting a percent change plus or minus next to each warrant item, each budget item, might be helpful so that people know, because in some cases it's an extreme difference. In other cases, it's nothing. And that way people have a sense, a better sense of what they are actually voting on year to year.
We can take a look at this, but I think the state kind of like determines how articles can be presented on a warrant, but we can find out if this is all possible.
Okay, I think it would be something that would help everyone understand better, and even if it was the original statement I read, I'm thinking like above all of those items.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name's Megan Canlis. I'm from Wiscasset. I am just following up with what Marty had said and asking that we put on the agenda a vote for the board to say if they're in support or not of the CMP corridor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, no one else? You will go ahead. I'm sorry, yes ma'am. Please state your name and where you're from.
My name is Brooke Callahan. I'm actually from Edgecombe.
I'm
And
sorry, I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if you would please do
Excuse
anything-
me, please. This is time for Wiscasset residents only. You cannot speak.
Will there be a time where we can?
No, not at this time. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will go forward. Department head or committee chair. Department head February monthly reports.
I know I said the same thing last meeting, or the last time we reported, but the wastewater treatment plant report is very thorough, and it really explains a lot of the stuff that we needed to know last night when we talked about the budget.
Yes.
So, I mean, in detail.
Very good report, thank you. Okay, under unfinished business, cleanup grant, RFP.
Yeah, that's item number 9A, and we had some minor editing to do, and we incorporated this down by the federal and state people, and this basically is good to go, just waiting for the board's approval to send out for RFP and so on and so forth. That's all I have to say.
Do you want it approved tonight?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can I have a motion? Yes, Catherine?
I move that we direct the town manager to submit this RFP and present it here.
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor? 5-0, thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed to get that into the system, advertising, and municipal.
Okay, next is our budget calendar. As you see, we were supposed to meet tomorrow night, that has been canceled. We will not meet tomorrow night, but we will meet March 20th, 25th, 27th, April 1st, and April 3rd at 5 p.m.
Tomorrow's the 20th.
Is tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow, that's right, it is the 20th, I'm sorry.
So I have a summary of where we're headed next. So those board members certainly have it, the reporter has it,
Right.
department heads have it. So,
Okay.
you want me to run through it?
Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, we started off scheduling Mondays and Wednesdays. So we had our first budget meeting last night. Police department and school resource officer, public works and cemetery, emergency management system, and wastewater treatment budgets were presented. What we have scheduled for the next meeting, which is going to be next Monday, the transfer station, parks and recreation, and fire department budgets will be presented. At that point, the board and budget committee will pause to take breath and discuss how they want to proceed on these different budgets. After that, there'll be another budget meeting on March 27th, and one after that on April 1st. The other items aren't as large or significant as the budget, as the departments I mentioned. So they should, and no great changes in those budgets, so could proceed quite rapidly. And I'm hoping that with any luck, the process will be completed at the meeting of April 1st, and then we could proceed preparing the warrant and so on and so forth. Anyway, that's my summary, and I just sent it out this afternoon.
Thank you. All right, policy on tax lien and sewer lien acquired policy revisions.
Do you want to take these two, Bernice?
You want to take this, Bernice?
We've gone through it all with the attorney and Bernice and I.
This is the latest revision from the attorneys regarding how we proceed with the tax acquired properties. As we had discussed before, we have two options. Once this policy is passed, we have an option to do a tax acquired property occupancy and repurchase agreement, which allows the taxpayer, actually it's the person in possession at that point in time, to pay off what they owe in 4 monthly installments, or they can make payments for the first 3 months and do a balloon payment. It's up to us and the taxpayer how they want to do it over 4 months, but it's 4 months and then nothing more. Or we can do the land installment contracts, which are for the 5 months or longer. But as the attorney warned us at the meeting he had with us several months ago, you have to go to court to get foreclosure on those. So I know the board was more interested in doing the 4 month. But both of those are discussed in the agreement that you have before you.
Okay. And it's all made clear here in the policy, correct?
Yes.
What's the board's pleasure?
I think she's right, the 4 months.
I would not go more than 4 months. Sorry.
If we approve this policy, do we have the option on a case-by-case basis? Or do we need to decide tonight that we will only ever do 4 months, or we will only ever do?
You can do a case by case, but like I said, the attorney
covered in
says
here.
that
I know.
if we do the 5 months, it's not a simple foreclosure process. It's a court action.
Right, we become more like a mortgage holder. It's a
Correct.
weird deal.
Okay. Yes, Bob?
Frankly, I would like a little bit more time to study this. Is it important that we?
It is actually, because
Well, I do see that nothing in this policy shall limit or restrict the authority of the Board of Selectmen to act in its sole discretion in the best interest of the town. It almost negates most of the rest of the
it still allows a lot of flexibility. If you recollect that workshop we had some time ago and discussing what the options were with these various individuals, this will allow us maintain that time frame, and that's the reason it's important.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it forward. I guess I don't really have a problem with this.
I know the parties that met with us back on February 13th, that we said we would give them 6 months to pay. There has been already more than a month go by. When we send out the final notice, they have 30 days to come to sign that notice, and then they have 4 months. So they will still be given the full 6 months that was promised to them.
And some of them are paying anyway.
A few, there are some that are still not, even those that were here that night.
Well, they don't know the consequences if they don't pay. Okay, can I have a motion on the policy first? To adopt this policy?
I'll move we adopt the policy on tax lien, sewer liens at the same time.
Do you,
Yeah, it's the same.
I'm sorry?
Are we doing both at the same time?
No,
no, they have to be done
This is the
separately.
first one.
All right, the policy on tax liens and acquired property. This is what you want.
Second.
And you'll second it? All those in favor? Okay. Now, the next one is the repurchase agreement. I'll make a motion to approve the tax acquired property occupancy and repurchase agreement form.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
if we could have, the first one did include sewer lien, I think
Yes.
maybe
We just excluded it from our motion.
we can do it separately. I mean, it says it's all
It
included.
says, that actually reads policy on tax lien and sewer lien acquired
We
property.
excluded it from
You
our
omitted,
motion.
you omitted, I think you just omitted it when you were reading it, is that right?
I guess I want to know whether that's what we wanted to do or not.
It
No,
basically,
you want it to be for both taxes and for sewer.
That's right, so,
was that your motion?
no.
What was that, Ben's motion?
To adopt the policy on tax lien and acquired property.
Because I asked if we wanted to do it separately, and somebody said yes, so I took it
Oh,
out.
I
They were
thought
referring
these
to-
two
We're
separate
doing
ones.
these two separately, but this policy needs to be done in fact.
Okay, so do you want to make another motion on this one, please? Amended.
Yes, well,
We've already voted, so we need a new motion. You need a new motion.
Yes.
well, you could,
I move that we rescind our original motion regarding the policy on tax liens.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Now you can make the motion.
I move that we approve the policy on tax liens and sewer liens and acquired property.
Second.
All those in favor? Now we're on the straight and narrow. Okay. Update on peer vendor fees.
no, you still got to get this one.
We did that
You
one.
have done that one?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I made the motion.
Well, I see I've written it down, sir. Okay.
I made the motion.
I can see how CMP got a letter from us.
Now, so to be just go set them up.
Okay, update on peer vendor fees.
The board directed me some time ago to find out what what similar communities may have done with a view to renting kiosks like we have on the Greenway Pier. And so Megan, up at the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission, looked into it, and you've got the memo dated March 8th, and shows her research. A lot of communities, and you've probably read this by now anyway, a lot of communities do not have kiosks. And so if you look at the second page, she's looking at some towns that do have it, and Bangor is one, Calais is another one, Fort Orchard Beach, and Rockland. And you can see the numbers change quite a bit. And you also, the last page shows the Wiscasset field vendor revenue. So you can compare the two. And I know the board at one point is looking at what revenue increases might be tolerated, if you will. And so this gives comparison from the outside versus what we actually do in Wiscasset. So it's more in the line of information as the board looks at possible fee or activity increases after we've done the budget process, actually. Anyway, that's what I have here.
Any questions from the board? Yes, Kim?
Do you know when the last time we raised the rates for our kiosks was?
No, I do not.
I feel like I was in a meeting when we raised the rates at one time, not as a select board, but as a person.
No, I'm sorry, I do not know.
Could we ask our waterfront committee to give us a recommendation on the fee increase? This would be the kind of thing I would ask our planner to recommend. I feel like we should raise the rate, but I don't know if we're not really exactly in line with these other communities, maybe closest to Rockland, I guess, but I don't know.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't want to compete with Old Orchard Beach.
No, and Calais and Bangor are very different,
Oh,
but,
absolutely.
but I just wonder, if we raise the rate, maybe come up with some sort of gradual rate increase?
Yeah. Yeah, I can pass on this information to the committee, and if the board wishes, ask them to respond maybe by the next meeting. Because many of them are here.
Okay. Yeah, let them come back with some figures.
Actually, Mary Ellen can find copies of that without too much difficulty.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Yes, Jeff, stand up here, please.
you brought this up a month and a half ago as well. It's been, I believe, over 2 decades since there's been a rate increase of any notice, of any note. There was actually a rate decrease on one vendor about 1.5 years ago from $400, the minimum, down to $250.
Ice cream plates. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But when I presented you figures a month and a half ago, based on Rockland and some other places, I put together a proposal of a very modest graduated thing with an absurdly low square footage rate that would be no impact on anyone who can really run a business. If they can't meet that, they shouldn't even be running a business. I do want to point out that there's not really going to be a quorum on the committee because you have at least 2 vendors. Of the 4 people on the committee, there are 2 vendors currently sitting on the committee.
Now, waterfront committee?
Yes. So there's a perceived conflict of interest having that type of vote. That's really a Board of Selectmen decision to be made. They can make recommendations, just as I as a citizen can, but I do believe seriously that it's a Selectmen thing. My main concern is we've got to pay to play. We've got very important and very valuable assets here that we undervalue tremendously in this town, and we're under severe financial strains in our budget here, and we can't allow our town to underwrite other people's businesses. I don't expect you to do it for my business. I don't think we should be doing it for other businesses. We want to promote good business in this town, but we need to have realistic levels, and they are so unrealistic and it's so low. They would not even cover the basic maintenance. If it's $4,000 currently, just if we keep porta-johns in the pier and we do trash collection, of the $8,000 that we actually made this year on vendor fees, almost all of that's eaten up right there. So please, seriously look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board?
I guess we could dig out his, I forgot, sorry Jim, I forgot about your paper
I
a few weeks
have
ago.
I didn't bring multiple copies, I have a few copies, but,
We could give that,
I'm fine.
yeah.
It'd be better if you gave them.
and then there's an elaboration where I broke it out further.
If we can take that away and then we can look at this again after we've had a chance to run numbers. I'm not gonna give it to the, I sort of feel like if the waterfront committee are also the vendors, then maybe we're putting them in an
It's
awkward
strictly
position.
advisory, they don't, you know,
They can
what they say is
recommend.
not necessarily.
They can
written in
recommend,
stone.
but the final decision is right
We have
here.
the final
Okay.
decision.
But I would like to see their recommendation.
Okay,
That's all.
At least give them that opportunity, the courtesy to give us feedback. And we can also compare that with what Jim has presented and
And
come
this
up with
packet as well.
a figure, yes.
very good.
Okay. Yes.
I just thought I'd chime in on this too, from Seabolts in Wiscasset. There are art and craft vendors that pay probably as much as these people on the pier are paying for a weekend or 2 weekends of their shows, I think. I think we should look into the farmers markets and see what they're charging for spaces as well. I haven't, so I can't go there and say that we are low. But when we're selling jams and jellies on the pier and people are selling jams and jellies at a farmer's market, I'd like to see the cost to those vendors being more in line with those.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, new business. February monthly financials. I think we saw this during the budget process. And it seems like Payson is still going higher. We're not losing money, thank goodness. It seems like everybody seems to be doing very good with their budgets right now.
Yep. Within the lines.
Yes.
I just had a question, and please forgive me if we went over this and I've forgotten, but do we know about the, where is it? It was electrical work for the town office building. There were two things that haven't been, oh yeah, municipal building electric. We haven't spent that yet. Is that in the works or is there a plan? I was just curious what that was.
I don't know.
Okay.
The electrical system is such that it could always stand some work.
Well, there's $37,000
I
here.
don't know,
Was it part of a capital project?
It says municipal building electric budget $37,237.60. Year-to-date, 0. And then there were two other, are those what we call repeaters? Oh, there were a few things. I'm just wondering if they're capital, should they be here?
on the electrical work in the building, the only thing I'm aware of is that there was some talk about upgrading the telephone system. Steve, you know?
I'm lost on it, seriously, I don't know.
There's also the community center roof and the primo vents at the fire station and the new.
It seems like all the capital projects. That's what it looks like to me. Because most of those would have been capital projects.
So should they be here?
These.
Well, yeah, it's money.
Yes, they'd be in the
It's
300.
money left over that wasn't
Yes.
spent.
So then I don't need to worry about any of that.
No,
That doesn't mean that we haven't spent it yet, it just means it's not.
it does mean we haven't spent it yet.
Oh, okay, so are we gonna?
But it
spend
may
that?
not have been appropriated at this last budget. Some of that is carried over from years past, as you had mentioned before, that it never lapsed back to the reserve funds. It just kept sitting there.
I'm just concerned that if we're supposed to do electrical work here, you know, if we raise money for that because there's a need, then,
It would have come out of the reserve funds, we didn't raise it.
But the point of it is, if it belongs to the reserve fund, it should go back to the
Agreed.
reserve fund if we have not spent it.
I never got a firm answer whether or not there was still activity that needed to be completed, which is why it's still sitting there.
yeah, there's
Because
communities.
I cleaned up as much of it as I could, but this, nobody could tell me if what it was intended for had been completed.
It just
I
makes
mean,
it.
we have $10,000 in there for a police cruiser.
I'm aware of a potential request, but it hasn't been made yet.
For the police cruiser?
But that's still left over from at least 2 years ago.
But are those numbers included in the final totals, where it says final budget?
hoping to spend that this year.
I'm
Can
sorry.
they get the bottom where it says final totals for budget net, like 14,620,000?
That report is misleading because you're looking at several different funds. You're not looking just at general fund. General fund is everything in the 100s. 200s is fiduciary fund, 300s is capital fund. So to be looking at that and saying that it's overall budget numbers is a little misleading.
But I'm looking at it that these are capital projects.
They are.
They have not been, we've already done the WCC roof, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's already been done. So there's $8,213 left in the kitty, or that account. If this money is not, these jobs have been completed and there's leftover money, that money should go back into the reserve fund. It should not be sitting in our books.
I
in our
agree, but
accounts.
I could not get an answer whether or not it had all been completed or not. That's why it's still sitting there.
Well, this would be something maybe we can discuss with at our next budget meeting, because we're gonna have the fire department here, and find out if the EMS pagers have been taken care of.
Well, the fire department roof has been done.
Right, that's why I don't,
I'll go back before the next meeting and find out how far back that money was put in and how long it's been sitting there.
okay.
But when I asked, because I cleaned up a lot of that stuff before the audit for June of 18, and that was still information that I wasn't able to get a direct answer. It's completed, or we needed to still carry it.
I mean, the Main Street Pier electrical,
That one I do know that Marion had said there was still some work downtown that had not been done. Steve, do you have any,
I believe that the pier work has been done.
just this year, or?
There
It was
was
done
there
for
was
that
a request
ice
for
cream.
an additional outlet, which I haven't costed, but I did get a request a few weeks ago. That's all I know about that. I don't know about
I'm just curious to check into that.
Yeah, I'll go back and see when it was originally put in there and when it was carried.
I just don't wanna see the money all of a sudden disappear.
It will still stay in those funds until you folks tell me to move it somewhere else.
Okay.
Brittany,
Yes.
how is it like down on the forklift, the transfer station trailer, those both show overdrafts? How would that be? The money should have been there for those.
The money, yes, the money was there for those, but it wasn't actually put in as a budgeted item. I have to go back and find out why.
Same way with the trailer.
Oh, I know why. Those two were just purchased this year, and they weren't actually budgeted. We borrowed the money, and then there are payments that are going forward is why those ones are that way.
We borrowed the money?
We did. Just this year, we bought both of those pieces of equipment.
I remember.
They were.
But I don't remember the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer actually was bought first.
But was that something that we said that we would take that amount of money out of our allotment this year?
No. The only reason it's showing up in capital is for the auditor's purposes to know that it needs to be added to the fixed assets. It was loan proceeds that were brought in, if you wish to see the whole picture of it. Loan proceeds came in and we bought it. So that it has to be sitting there as a fixed asset addition. It wasn't budgeted for that total purchase because there was loan money that came in for it. So it was budgeted in the transfer station budget to pay those loan payments going forward once they were purchased.
Okay.
Because the old forklift was traded in and this trailer was purchased.
Okay, I guess.
Sometimes I think some of this information isn't in the best format for you guys to understand it.
I agree.
Okay. All right, let's go on. Quitclaim deed for Gary and Debbie Joslin. Map R04 lot 010A29.
Was this the one, this was the one that was left out of,
No.
no, this was the one?
This is one that somebody has paid off
Okay, okay.
and they had taxes beyond just doing a discharge for, so we have to claim it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to grant the quitclaim deed for Gary and Debbie Joslin. All those in favor? 5-0. Watercraft storage rack, rental policy proposal, Peter Wells.
Good evening, my name is Peter Wells. I'm a resident of Wiscasset as of last month. I'm here to present a proposal for a watercraft storage rack to be located down at the waterfront building.
Excuse me, is the mic actually on?
Yes.
I don't know.
Is there an on-off button?
Hello? Any different?
No.
It was okay when people were speaking from the podium. I don't know whether the distance makes.
I'll try and speak.
Thank you, you did very well. Well done.
Thank you. So this is a proposal to install a combination of 3 rental storage racks on the building. This proposal is for phase 1, which will be 1 rental storage rack. Each rack has 4 shelves that can hold up to 80 pounds and an 18-foot watercraft, typically a kayak, canoe, and or paddleboard. The building, as I mentioned, can accommodate 3 of these racks, one located on the southern side of the building. I've imaged in an existing condition photograph and then what the rack would look like on the building itself. I submitted 8 copies of these plans to you 2 weeks ago, so I'm not sure if you have them in front of you or not, but it was submitted. So why consider this? Obviously, it's much more convenient for residents to drive down to the town pier and access their kayak downtown. It also brings people to downtown, so there's an economic positive for this to go downtown. I met with the waterfront committee twice, and they're in full support of this proposal. The cost, each rack would cost $760 to purchase, and that includes 4 eye bolts so that one could secure their kayak and or watercraft to the rack itself. That doesn't include installation. I've also included a draft rental agreement in the packet that's in front of you, and that outlines the terms of use, the application process, and the rental policy. The important thing to consider within that rental agreement is that the rack rental is at the renter's own risk, and that the town of Wiscasset accepts no responsibility for loss or damage to each of the watercrafts. It also suggests a yearly fee for that, but that's up to the board. Some of the neighboring towns that have this include fees of roughly $30 to $40 to $50 per season. We also managed to find a donor for phase 1 of this project that would pay for the first watercraft rack. Pay for the rack and the eye bolts as long as the town would consider installing it on the building. And in return for buying it, that couple would want not free, but they would want a certain amount of rental space to go toward their kayaks. So basically, it's a simple proposal. It's one that I think will benefit the town and also benefit the merchants in downtown. Any questions?
Does anyone on the board have a question? Yes, Jim?
I attended one of the waterfront meetings, and I think Peter's idea is great. I'm all in support of that. But again, I'm a fiscal conservative here, and I think that this is a benefit that, at best, with 3 racks, there's going to be 12 people who can store kayaks or dinghies or whatever it might be there. So only a minimum number of people can benefit per season because it's going to be a seasonal or annual type rental. And rather than put this on the town and on an already strained budget, who have no intention to use the rack, but I think it's a great idea. I think there are other ways to skin the cat. There are a lot of parks, a lot of other municipalities that are not using the ones that are prefabricated that cost so much money, but are made out of pressure-treated 2x4 construction or even kind of a log construction that are far more durable and could be independent standing and basically constructed by work parties. It could be a project that could be done by some type of citizens group, maybe the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, I don't know. And I myself would be happy to contribute labor and materials towards that type of thing, but I don't support $3,000 or so of town monies. And I'm concerned about it being against that structure. I think there's some safety issues there because it's a very complex lot. When you've got a lot of boat users there, and that's the public restroom building as well as they're not, it gets really, really cramped there. So I think it's a great idea. I think we should, there's one I found at a state park in Carolina is using that can hold 6 boats. That's nothing more than, it's attractive and it's just readily done in a pressure-treated 2x4 and all. We could establish these in a couple of different locations along the waterfront at minimal cost, I believe. And the other thing on the fee structure, Peter's right, some have charged as low as $30 per season. Rockland has a $30 dinghy fee, for example, and Boothbay does, dinghy storage fee. It's a storage fee, though. But others are charging $150 to $250 per season, so it's all over the board there. So if the town is to invest its money, I think the fee rate needs to be larger. If it's donated labor and materials, I think the fee structure can be very reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Susan?
Susan Blackton, Wiscasset, and speaking as the consultant to the HBC, I think this needs to come before them for a COA.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Has this gone before the waterfront committee today?
Twice,
Did they approve it?
yes.
I see you want to say something.
Well, they have racks like this in Wiscasset by the water, and they're like the ones that Jim described. They're freestanding. I don't know whose racks they are. I don't think they're the kayak rental place. I think they may be for town people to use. Yeah, that might be a less expensive way to do it rather than attaching to the building. I also think that it's better if we don't attach things to the building because the building might be old, and if we attach things to the building, then it could compromise the building.
Okay. Anyone, Bob?
I don't really know a lot about this, but it seems like that standalone rack, excuse me, wouldn't even have to be near the building. It could be on the pier.
Could be. Yes.
We actually looked at a standalone rack option, and the problem that the waterfront committee had with it was locating a spot for it that wouldn't be in the way of boats backing in and out. We did find one location which was located more toward the actual ramp going into the water, but it was sitting out there in broad daylight where things could hit it, and they were concerned about that happening. The further away you go, the further away you get from the ramp, which is where kayaks are launching. They're not launching off the pier or the docks. They're launching off of the ramp. And they felt that since this is a precast concrete structure, that putting in 3 lag bolts for each one of these was not going to do much in terms of the structural integrity of the building. But
Okay. What's the board's pleasure? We already know that Susan feels that we should go before the historical preservation.
So who would do that?
Susan, who would have to be the ones to do the application for the historic preservation?
I guess Peter.
Peter?
Sure.
Would have to do it?
I'm not sure on that one because it's the owner.
Because would be the, with the town would own it,
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Well, then, I guess you guys would have to come.
Yes, sir.
Rick Burr from Wiscasset. So, does it have to go before the Historical Preservation Committee because it's attached to the building? Would that not, if it's a freestanding one, would it also have to go before the Historical Committee? No.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, because you're building something new in the area. Is that, am I getting that correct?
Yeah.
But last year, didn't we give the kayak rental people permission to park storage racks down there? They parked them over where that, the art piece was, and it was temporary, so.
It was temporary.
Right, so if we had a freestanding structure, that could also be considered temporary?
No. Not if it's staying there all year in and year out.
So not to go before the historical preservation, it would have to be something that would be removed? Is that what you're saying, Susan?
I would think.
Okay.
It's just my opinion, I mean.
And what would you need it down there in the wintertime anyway? I mean, who kayaks?
That's when they're going to be storing things on it, right?
No.
Just during the seasons.
Oh, just during the,
From
okay.
May 1st to end of October.
Uh-huh, okay.
So it would be temporary. Yes, Bob?
It would be temporary, but the structure would be permanent.
I'd like to perhaps do a little research on seeing if this isn't something that could be built, perhaps with some donated material and volunteer labor. And I don't see any reason why it couldn't be on the pier. It'd be pretty hard to run over it if it was built on the pier, and it'd be fairly close to where it would launch kayak, and then any risk to the building would be nullified. And there's no reason why it couldn't be picked up and put away in the fall.
Sure,
So
but
it
they
would
take
be, it would be seasonable. If that makes a difference, it doesn't, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if I really want to have it connected to the building. I don't think that's. So you want to table this for?
So who would find out if we can, who would do that research? Like, are we taking this on, or are we asking Peter to go back and research it?
I've already done that research, and I don't agree with standalone one, but
Didn't I hear we were given one? That somebody was giving us one?
He said somebody was gonna donate the first $760.
correct,
In exchange for the use of,
of the, two of the wrecks.
and this is.
And no
for-
fee.
And no fee for a certain amount of years.
So the town pays for
What's free?
The screws.
the lag bolts, okay, gotcha, all right. But the donor is gonna get basically 2 racks, the one they're donating plus the use of the second one, is that what it was?
There's 4 shells to the rack.
Okay.
So the donor would get the first 2. And you can put more than one kayak on one rack as long as it's under 80 pounds. So, I thought it spruced up the building a little bit by putting kayaks on them. But
All right, Susan, I'm gonna ask you again, I guess. If the board were to decide to go with this and connect it to the building, we would have to go before the historical preservation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The town would.
A minor correction is the historic
Oh,
preservation.
historic.
Well, people do it all the time, it just irritates me.
We would.
You don't want to irritate me, do you?
No. We would have to come before you as a town, to get
Yes,
fresh.
I believe so.
If it was standalone and they were only there temporarily during the season, we would not.
That would be like the Hesper sign
Okay.
down there a couple of years ago, that
Okay.
schooner sign.
All right. Thank you. So what's the board want to do?
Send it to the historic preservation. Send it to the historic preservation first.
We didn't decide what we're gonna do first.
Do you want to do it?
Oh, Judy, if I could. It looks like there's probably 2 options. We could consider a standalone temporary one, or we could accept the donated fastened to the building one, which is, I'm guessing, free. And whichever one we do, we could have someone take it to the preservation committee, or if it was a temporary one, not. I mean, that's probably the decision we should make. And if we was going to go with a standalone one, I think somebody should do as Jim suggested, look into perhaps some donated material and labor, and maybe that could appear for free.
Yes, Susan.
There's one other consideration. The standalone temporary one, you would have to budget to take away. Just to add to the budget. Just saying. You can't, no, you can't just roll it. away, I would be able to do that.
I think that we should take the free one. I don't think there's any harm in taking the free one and then see what happens. Because to date, there's never been a public request for this type of service or amenity. So if somebody's offering to put one on the building for free and you guys don't think it'll compromise the building, then why not take the free one? And if there's big demand, we could always revisit the issue and decide. Because really, if you fill that building up with them, you can still only park 12 kayaks.
If you're planning on taking the free one and connecting it to the building, the first thing we have to do
Let's do that.
is go to preservation.
And are you willing to go to Historic Preservation Commission?
Sure.
Okay.
Right. Let us know what they say.
Can't wait.
Is that okay with the board?
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't need to speak. This is my 2 cents.
Then, you look.
Well, I'm not sure if I like the idea, because it's donated, we're gonna give 2 spaces away to somebody. Is that for 1 season, or is that forever?
Well, it'd be, I believe you said for a period of time.
Depending on how much the town wants to charge for rental, I'm sure that the donors would be willing to work with you guys on figuring out how long that would last. For instance, if it's $50 a year and the donors wanted to have 2 racks, that's $100 a year. They're donating $760, so maybe for the next 5 years, they get a rental free. And then you take in 5 years, or I'm sure they're flexible.
I don't know, I'm like Bob, I'm still more for the standalone. Just put one up there and then take it down. I'm not connecting it to the building. Yes, ma'am, I think you want to say something?
Actually, yeah, sure. I mean, this may or may not be applicable, but, you know, we have a yacht club right there that has a ton of storage space. Maybe we can work out some kind of a special price for just kayak owners for the season or something. They're right there, they've got the space, they can collect the dues. And because we're gonna have to have somebody at the town that's responsible for collecting the seasonal dues as well, so it's a little complicated.
Yes.
We're also members, my wife and I are members of the yacht club. And you have to become a full member of the yacht club in order to rent space for your kayak. So the fees, it's close to $300 in order to join and rent a kayak. So it's not, and those spaces are usually filled up by their members.
All right, what's the pleasure, what do you want to do? I would like to look into seeing what it would cost to make them. I mean, there's plenty of room down there that they can be put. I mean, you've got 2 big wharfs down there. The recreational pier, you've got plenty of room.
Would it be appropriate to ask Jim if perhaps you couldn't draw up what you're actually talking about?
Photograph of one of them right here. With the state park. It's like, give somebody a 6-pack and a couple of things. Thank you.
And it would appear that the kayak owner simply chains the kayak somehow to the structure.
That's how it is with even the prefab ones, you have to secure it yourself. But the thing is, the way it works in most towns is you get a sticker or a decal for the season, so we have to print up decals. And to only be fair to the town residents, it seems to me it should be some type of lottery system. So people all have a fair chance to get a berth for their kayaks. Again, I'm going to keep my kayak in my house, but I mean, I'm just saying, you know, you know, if there's more demand for it than we have spaces, how do we determine who gets it? First come, first served, lottery, drawing, I don't know.
I guess I would want to kind of test the demand a little bit. I didn't realize that people.
I didn't think there was that big of a demand.
I mean, I was looking at this picture here, which shows a stand underneath, which would allow you to set it right on the pier, which would be pretty easy to.
Yeah, they're just not very durable, you know. They're good for a home pier, but I don't think they take up the rigors of a public usage. My opinion, anyhow.
Those look like commercial grade.
And if you're thinking about return on investment, if it's almost 800 per unit plus whoever's gonna install them, that's $2,400 and it's $600 a summer. It's gonna take you 4 years just to pay back. Right. Installing them.
This looks pretty simple. I mean, it's 6, like one of the 6 is going across, and the uprights, 2 by 4s probably bolted together. It must be on some sort of a post or, excuse me, somehow into the ground so that it doesn't come out. But I don't know if I'd build that with a 6-pack, but it doesn't look like it would really take that long.
Well, if you're looking at the pier, you've got your restroom here, and I think over in here is where they used to put in the docks. They'd sit them there during the winter.
During winter, yes, yes.
Why can't you have your kayak storage there?
That's on the yacht club property.
No, it's not.
No.
That's town property.
No,
Yes,
the,
sir.
the problem would be that that's used for parking vehicles during the summer.
No, on the other side, way down.
Well, that is your club down there. But up in the parking lot where the town puts theirs.
On the other side of this building, way on the other side, we used to put the docks there in the wintertime. We take them, dump them, and put them in. I'm saying, once the docks go back in, where they're supposed to, why can't that be utilized for the kayaks?
Well, what I'm saying is those docks are put right in the parking lot. If you move the docks, you can see where it's lined to park the cars. So that space is actually car parking
I was just
space.
thinking.
But there's
You're
other
gonna take up that
room
much
there.
space?
There's other room there. There's other room.
Okay.
Maybe we should see, if I may, maybe we should just see if we can get a certificate of appropriateness. And then we might not even have a discussion here, they may say this is not appropriate.
Well, I think if we want to do this, maybe we need to take a road trip down to the water and take a look at where we would want them
I think that's a good idea.
to be able to, because what I'm visioning is one thing. I would like to, maybe, like I said, maybe we need to take a road trip.
Well, I do think that's a good suggestion that before this shows up at the water park, it might be nice to know if it was going to be allowed. So it would seem that.
That's talent saying, putting it connected to the building.
Right, but before we make a decision, it would be nice to know if that is an option, because if that's not an option, then it makes the decision a lot easier.
Yeah.
So it would seem like there's 2 parallel things we should do. We should probably look at the situation down there and also find out if the rack affixed to the building would be allowed in the first place.
True. Okay. Peter, would you be willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Then you get back to us on that?
Will do.
Alrighty. Okay. Sunken garden discussion, Steve Christensen. Very interesting reading.
Well, thank you.
Very thorough, too.
Well, I took my time, went through the things. 61 years ago, on March 10th, 1958, Article 71 of the town warrant read as follows. to see if the town will accept as a gift from Dan Saltwell, Marion Warland, and Clara Marie in a certain plot or parcel of land. Now, this piece of land that they're talking about is what we know today as a sunken garden. And it goes on to say that said gift to be on the condition that said property shall be used as a public garden or park, that no buildings, key word right now, will be built on the said premises, and that said appearance be as they are now. Provided further that if the town fails to live up to any of the conditions of the deed, that the property shall revert back to the heirs and the grantors. We, the town, voted to accept that piece of property under those conditions back in March 1958. The Saltwell family, to the inhabitants of Wiscasset, quitclaim deed describes their land, just what I just spelled out to you, from the warrant. We as a town did pretty good on abiding by what the conditions were from 1958 until 1990. And in 1990, in the year ending December 31st, 1990, Town of Wiscasset annual report, in the appearance of the town report, there was mention made of a request to build a storage shed in the sunken garden. Also in that same annual report, Article 10D, was for the town common and sunken garden to raise or appropriate $6,500, and this appropriation of $6,500 was passed. Let's go to the next year. Now we're up into the year ended December 31st, 1991. 1 year later, Town of Wiscasset annual report. $5,282 of the $6,500 appropriated was spent for the town common and sunken garden. Also in that same town report, in the appearance of the town report section of it, was the statement that the new storage shed asked for the previous year was built and located on the sunken garden property. I only can make the assumption that $5,200 of that $6,500 went to the labor of the material to build that shed. You'll see in this packet, I have provided a lot of stuff, and I also went on further, and I could. This is something that I was unsure of. In the year ending 1991 town report, under building permits, there's not mention of a storage shed for the sunken garden. Now, I don't know if the town is required to get a building permit or not. However, in that same year, there were 32 permits listed for storage buildings and sheds, not one for the sunken garden. So I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper now. So I get into the 1990 and 1991 selectmen's meeting minutes. And no note was, I could find, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, no note that I could find was the proposed and subsequently built storage shed was found for the sunken garden. So I'm almost done. In conclusion, this is Steve Christensen's opinion that we as a town failed to live up to the conditions of the gift of land, sunken garden, voted and passed in March 1958, spelled out in the quitclaim deed as well, which clearly stated that no buildings, that's the key word, shall be built on the land, or the land would revert back to the heirs and the donors and the grantors. So, since the current building located in the sunken garden, which is there now in the corner, is against the conditions of the 1958 town vote and quitclaim deed, I believe that it needs to be removed, as the deed says it will go back. We did not live up to the conditions of their deed, and I don't think that we can change. If I give you a gift and say this is my conditions, and 20 some odd years later you say, everybody that wrote this is long dead, which is true, that we can do this. Now, I'm not pointing fingers, blaming people for doing it under the table. No, we didn't do our homework, and I pointed it out.
Yeah, no question about it, it's theirs. Send them a tax bill.
Steve, that's the choice. You will take the building down or send them a tax bill.
Are you one of the heirs?
No.
No.
No, but I lived next door to the place growing up, so. So
A little joke, Steve, but seriously, you bring up a really good point, and I did know Dan Sartle, and perhaps one of the other ladies, but, what they gave the town, the conditions that they gave that to the town, we should honor.
Yes.
And that probably means the building should go away.
I read, as I said, this was very thorough.
Well, I went
very
through,
closely.
I went through and I wanted to make sure that I had all my proverbial ducks in a row, so I checked, double checked and triple checked, and just wanted to make it flow.
And I do agree with Bob that we have not lived up with the deed, the gift, and so the building should come down.
I'd like to make a motion that we make the arrangements for the town crew to come and do what they need to do to get this out of there.
Well, just sell it, what it is.
Well, we can sell it, yeah, take it.
It's probably rotten right now.
I will second Catherine's motion. Kim, did you have something?
I was just curious, does somebody use it? Like, is it being used by the town or the garden club or anyone?
Well, I think what we could do, in all honesty, if we wanted to, just a thought, turn around and remove the building and maybe take it to the transfer station or someplace and put it out to bid or to sell. I would remove it from the property before I did anything.
Put a free sign on it, the roof needs to be done.
And then dispose of it, let the
I'd like
board
to be
decide.
able to say something. I'm from the Wiscasset Garden Club, and we have been helping the community at this particular garden for several years, and we use that shed to, of course, store everything that we need for that garden. I know that Norma Gordon has a lot of her things in that shed, and I don't know the circumstance whether or not the town uses that shed, for any of the other people who go there and work. We only work there for part of the time, let's say, and we really do get quite involved in the growing of the particular gardens and making it a very beautiful spot there. I don't know whether or not it will be detrimental to have that storage shed gone. It was there obviously because it was needed. It would be nice for the town to support that beautiful spot that many people, when I go there to garden, oftentimes I meet people from out of state who of course go into all of our sites around the town, looking around, and they think it's a wonderful, unique little spot. However, it takes a lot of time and effort to garden in that small space. And I would like some accommodation from the town to the effort that's already been given to that wonderful garden space. Though I do see the wonderful need to have it more pristine, more lovely, without a shed in a corner. It might be nice, maybe not to have a shed in a corner. However, I think the town should accommodate those who do work on that special little spot in town. We're quite well known for our sunken garden. And so just to take it away and not to accommodate us in some manner, I think would be inappropriate. We shouldn't just sweep it away.
Thank you. Susan.
Way back when the sunken garden was first sort of refurbished, which was, I think, back in the 60s, they kept tools, volunteers who maintained it, kept tools in the barn of the Sowell house. And that was pre-shed. The shed only went in about 15 or 20 years ago. And that worked very well, I think. I was one of the people who worked on it, and my tools were there. So perhaps that could be investigated.
Thank you.
To
Any other comments from the board? What do you want to do?
Is there any, and I know we don't want to give the Sunken Garden back and get tax revenue for that, but is there any way we could talk to the heirs and have them, is that legal? Like, could they give us permission to keep a storage?
It's ours, they heired it to us with those stipulations.
I mean, who would they revert back to in their deed?
They would revert back to,
the Sortwell family.
The Sortwell family.
So,
But I don't really think you can undermine the wishes and the will of the people who did it and are now gone.
but it could a great grandson.
It just doesn't seem appropriate.
It is a lovely garden. I don't know if there's another place to store the stuff, but it's really very pretty. It would be a shame to have it just go to weed.
I agree with you, but it's very plain and very clear what it states in the deed.
I was just thinking we could come up with another solution. And then we could move the shed, but what do we do with the tools?
Yeah. I think Susan Blagden's suggestion made sense. And I would think, I would just like to ask the garden club president or the membership if they could contact the Nichols Sortwell historical group perhaps. And I would like to think that they would be willing to allow the garden club members to store their tools in that barn.
Okay, I just need to point out that we help Norma. It's actually the beautification committee that has the ownership of maintenance of the garden. So
Yeah, she could do that.
It will affect her, and she does have a lot of volunteers. We keep a log. You write down what I did this week, so you know when you come, what needs to be done. But I think it's really Norma's bailiwick.
Well, can you contact her and perhaps suggest that that's what it's a solution, because I feel the board should abide by the original.
I should contact her, but since the town owns it and the town
Well,
manages it.
then I'll ask the
I don't
town
think the
manager.
garden
He
club
will,
should be the go-between.
then we will take care of it.
Thank you.
I will call her.
And I didn't say, I'm Beth Maxwell, I'm currently vice president of the garden club, so.
Okay, thank you.
So, what does the board want to do?
We've got a motion.
Did I make a motion? Did you make a motion?
Well, I'll make it a motion. It was sort of a motion, but I would like perhaps the town manager to.
You already have a motion
I
to
do.
take down
Oh,
the shed,
that's
but that
right.
hasn't been
Okay,
voted
I'm
on yet.
getting ahead of myself.
All right.
Can I offer a friendly amendment? Can I make, is that a friendly amendment, or am I allowed to the motion?
We already have amendment that we're going to discuss. We have amendment right now.
We have a motion.
I made a motion to take
Catherine
the
made
building down
to make arrangements with the town to take the shed down.
Catherine made it, who seconded it?
You did.
And then I was wondering if I could amend that
And we
to,
haven't, no.
You do a second motion.
well, I was just gonna ask if we could have the town manager contact whoever's in.
Well, I think
owns
that
the
would be
things.
after, that would be another motion.
Okay.
I would like that as a separate motion. So right now, we have a motion to take the building off the property.
Keep it in safekeeping until.
Wouldn't it be nice out of respect for the beautification committee to see if they can find another place to put their tools before we simply remove this? Because they probably got tools in there now, getting ready for the spring. It really does, the sunken garden really does look nice when they get it all spruced up. They work very hard on it.
And other areas around town, in the garden club, that do these things.
Yes, sir.
So the shed has been there for 20-some years already. If it's there for another month or two, while we sort things out with the people who maintain the garden, would it be a big problem?
That's all I'm asking.
Right.
I don't think they move it until the snow goes away. If it never goes away.
I mean, I think you could say that we need to have it moved by June or something like that, and you need to make some other arrangements, but,
I mean, Steve's probably right. I was on the board back then, maybe we didn't do our homework, but I don't know, but it might have been run by a town lawyer that said that it would meet it, depending on how you want to read this thing. It is a temporary structure. I mean, it's built, a building as such.
Well, the language says built or erected, and it was built.
I mean, I don't mind moving it, but let's give them a chance to not just move it.
You want to amend your motion to give a specific time frame?
So you wouldn't have
And give the opportunity to find some place to put their tools.
to remove the shed before Memorial Day in May. Would that be appropriate? That's
Yes,
plenty of time.
that will give us a couple months.
And then in the meantime, we can
Okay.
do some that.
So the motion is to move the shed by Memorial Day. All those in favor?
Reluctantly.
Okay. Now, shall we make a motion to authorize John to contact Norma, to Gordon, to discuss about what to do with the tools that are in the garden?
We don't need any motion for that, I'm sure John would be glad.
Okay. Once, we have to make a decision also, once you remove it, where are you gonna take it? What are you gonna do with it?
I've actually spoken to Ted about moving the building. I said it's likely that that'll need to be moved, so he's been, so I
Okay.
wonder where I'd put it. So
Okay.
we've moved that far ahead,
Okay.
subject obviously to the board.
All right, then you'll just go ahead and talk
What's
to
the woman's name?
Norma Gordon.
Does anybody have a phone number?
Under Larry Gordon.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's almost like 5003 or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
82, 503.
So Larry,
Okay, so, off we go to the next one. Business license approval for Edward Colburn doing business as Water Street Kitchen and Bar.
Is that the bank?
No, that's legal.
Oh, okay.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Town clock maintenance agreement.
That's in your package. It's something they do every year. They sent a proposal on February 28th. The cost is $950 labor only, is what they say. And if any components are required, they'll be added to the cost. As it happens, just this morning, let's see if I find his name, Mr. Cahoon came in and said the tower itself the clock tower itself needs a significant amount of work. Apparently the town owns the tower, and this man is a property manager for the owners of the full building. And I said, oh, in the middle of the budget process, I don't know. I said, how much do you think it might cost? Are we talking 5,000, 10,000, 15,000? He didn't know. And I said, it's going to be hard to, feed into the system unless maybe there'll be some donors or a delay. So I'm a little hesitant to have the clock itself.
I thought it was just done last year. Jason Putney did it.
Yeah,
There was some more, but this man is saying there's water getting in there, and if there's water getting in there near the clock, I'd be a little reluctant to repair the clock. So at this point, I have to follow up, look at this.
Jason Putnam, a town resident, was kind enough to go down there and do some significant work last year. I think he would be fine if we asked him to go take a look.
Okay.
He's got some history there, and he does that kind of work, so if we need some scope of the repairs, I think he would be glad to help with that.
Yeah. But this man was quite, I won't say emotional, but definite in how much water was damaging the tower itself. But I will follow up with Mr. Putnam.
Thank you.
Okay, so you don't need a motion on that as of this moment?
Okay, the next item is Friends of Wiscasset Village, Peter Wells, Mary Ellen Barnes.
Thank you very much for the time tonight. I know that we want to be able to get to the streetscape discussion, so I'll just be kind of brief with introducing the Friends. I think you've probably met a few of us before. But the mission of the Friends is to communicate positive energy, strengthen the local economy and community, celebrate our unique treasures, and welcome new neighbors and businesses. So that sounds great. And our goal is to really work through the DOT project, and hopefully we're going to set some roots down to live beyond that as well. So right now this is an ad hoc group. We're informally organized. I checked our numbers this morning. We have about 45 people, mostly residents of the village, businesses, residents, and some organizations. So it's kind of exciting to have a mix of different talents there. Great people who know how to take photographs, design, write. And so we've been focusing, for the most part, as you know, on trying to promote the downtown as open for business during the last holiday season, last fall. We've worked hard to keep up with the communication with DOT, and we're looking to reset that conversation for the spring. So we want to be able to be out front a little bit ahead of time about the impacts of the DOT project on the downtown. We're also carrying out, we're sort of trying to design different kind of flyers. I don't have anything too attractive tonight, but we worked with DOT on getting one map done of the parking areas, and they turned it into a flyer that really just helped to promote the downtown in different ways. So we'll be doing more of that this year. And so in one sense, it's great I think we have about 15 or so people who regularly come to our meetings. So the PAC work got finished last fall, I believe. A lot of people in the room here probably attended many of those meetings. And then we got through our holiday promotion. And then we finally got a chance to look at the DOT plans, the drawings, 100 pages worth of specs and drawings for the project. And I think that's when we began to realize that there's great potential here with the sidewalks that are being built. And so I'm happy that we have, I forgot what I was calling the committee, but the Extra Amenities Committee, which consists of Peter and Terry Heller and Brad and Rick Burns. And so they could just talk a little bit about some ideas. And so I'll turn this now over to Peter, who has worked, as you may know, on many different streetscape projects in Massachusetts and beyond. But anyway, so we're really excited that he is a resident of the town and is helping us with this. So I know that you've spent some time on it. And did the selectmen receive copies of this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you take the microphone for me. Okay.
Thanks, Marion. Once again, my name is Peter Wells. I'm also a registered landscape architect with the state of Maine. We've done, my office has done over 30 streetscapes throughout New England and some as far down as Atlanta, Georgia. What I wanted to show our subcommittee and also Friends of Wiscasset was what we're actually getting in terms of sidewalk, street trees, lighting, et cetera, because the plans are quite difficult to read. So what I did is I rendered up a plan that you have in front of you that shows mainly the main portion of downtown, and shows you, one, how wide sidewalks are, two, how many trees you're getting, three, what other amenities like bollards and granite seat walls that you are getting. But you're getting a new brick sidewalks, approximately 6,650 square feet of new brick sidewalks. The width varies in downtown. In this one section of downtown from anywhere between 22 feet and on up to 30 feet wide of brick sidewalk. And to give you some perspective of that, this room itself is 20 feet wide. So one portion of our sidewalk is 30 feet wide, and what it does house is basically, there's 3 trees on one side, on the northern side, and 3 trees on the southern side, along with 3 decorative lights on each side, and then granite bollards and chain that is close to the curbing. So we have quite a bit of sidewalk that we could take advantage of by adding amenities such as benches, which we don't have any, trash receptacles, which are not in the plan either, along with planters. So we went ahead and developed 3 concepts that you have in front of you on where those benches could go, where those trash receptacles could find a home, And I've also created graphics that you don't have in front of you, but it shows roughly what these amenities could look like. What type benches, for instance, this specified tree that MDOT has gone out and bought with the contractor. It's a Japanese tree lilac. It's a mid-sized tree that grows approximately 18 to 24 feet in height. It's not going to provide a tremendous amount of shade, but it will provide some buffering of the amount of streetscape that you do have. We also have a granite, what we're calling a granite seating block wall that is located on the northern side. There's approximately 102 linear feet of that block wall. That's also doubling as a retainage wall from the grades from Main Street to the sidewalk. People can sit on it, but it's not accessible for older people that need armchairs to move up and down. It's also on a sidewalk that's roughly 8% grade. We've shown some bench options that could be installed. These benches would have to be installed perpendicular to the roadway because the sidewalk grades are in excess of 8%. But to show you roughly some of the widths of the sidewalk, in front of the old bank, there's 30 feet of sidewalk from the existing cobblestone set of steps on out to the curb edge. And 30 feet is quite extensive with only a light pole within that area. In the clover, there's roughly 28 feet. In front of trees, it's 25 feet wide. So quite expansive when it comes to sidewalk areas. We have three different options, A, B, and C. I'll briefly run through these, and these are just concepts. We're not trying to sell them. They're just showing you what could happen if you were to consider supporting benches and trash receptacles and planters. Option A shows roughly 4 benches on the northern side. One is up next to in the clover. One is centrally located with 2 benches that face each other. They're roughly 8 to 10 feet apart. And then one down next to that 30-foot wide sidewalk. We've tried to locate them in close proximity to some of the street elements that are proposed by MDOT, such as light poles and or benches. So they're not just sitting out in this massive sidewalk floating. Concept B shows a trash receptacle, a planter, and a bench in front of the clover, and then further down next to the existing cobblestone retaining wall that's going to be pointed and worked on. We've shown a new tree with benches and a planter. Across the street, we've shown benches that are along the existing cobblestone retaining wall, and then a bench and trash receptacle outside of trees. Concept C goes a little bit further. This area in front of the old bank, the steps there are going to remain as is. They're going to be worked on with new granite treads, and the cobblestone granite will be pointed. But beyond that, they're going to stay as is, and then we have our 30-foot wide sidewalk that's roughly 30 feet by close to 50 feet. So it's a good sized area that has 1 tree and 1 light pole in it. So concept C gets rid of the steps that are there and creates new steps that are curvilinear, mimicking the curve that's out here, and creates an elevated area outside of the old bank for tables and chairs. And whether or not this becomes an eating establishment someday, it could be a wonderful outdoor space for people to sit, eat, and just watch people at Revs probably. So this concept obviously would cost quite a bit more than concept A and B because we are creating a new retaining wall, new steps, et cetera, et cetera. But it's an option that we just wanted to pursue as the Friends of Wiscasset Village, just to look for it as an option. So these are the amenities. Along with that, there is no access to water in downtown, so when these new trees are put in, they're going to have to be watered by a watering truck. And we are asking also for support. I'm trying to get some public hose bib with a meter down there so that the trees can be watered and any potential planters in the future could also be watered. So we're basically here tonight to ask for your support in terms of where the money's going to come from for these improvements is still in question. We were hoping as a group, as the Friends of Wiscasset Village, to first gain your support in terms of developing some amenities for downtown, and in turn possibly going back to MDOT and seeing if they could help support a portion of this. It was brought up during one of the PAC meetings that we can always simply add benches and trash receptacles after this is all done. And you can do that, but it's quite costly. Benches need footings that go below frost or a concrete pad to bolt into, as do trash receptacles. So if we were to go back afterwards, we would have to rip up the sidewalk, put in footings and foundations. If we could coordinate with Mass DOT while the sidewalks are ripped up now and at least put in pads for new benches, we're half the way there. So it would be difficult to add on later on. So those are our ideas, and we're here to see what you guys think and hopefully get some support.
Any questions from the board?
Big question, is there a price tag at all?
Good question. Yes, we estimated that if we bought 8 benches and 4 trash receptacles, the price tag for just the material, not the installation, is going to be roughly $18,000, depending on which bench you select. So that's just for the material, not the installation.
Is there a guess on the installation? I would hold you to it, but just...
You could probably double that cost.
Okay.
Susan?
Has there been any study on, or any facts on how much this will cost the town ongoing? I personally would hate to see $40,000 extra added to our budget. Down the road, who maintains all this? How much would it cost? I just don't know.
Good question. The benches that we would specify would be extremely durable benches that are made for downtown areas. So the benches would need minimal maintenance. You might get graffiti possibly, but we've done many streetscapes, and benches last 15 to 20 years. Trash receptacles are needed no matter what in downtown. You have 4 now that are temporary, some are plastic. So those are going to have to be maintained as far as trash pickup. But I don't see any additional maintenance for these services. If we are going to go with any type of planter with plants, that would be maintenance that would have to be done by either town, garden club, a new committee, whatever. But we don't have many of those labeled yet. We're trying to get the benches and the trash receptacles for starters.
Yes, Marianne?
I think we have a few unknowns here, but we wanted to take advantage of the timing because the season is about to start. These ideas have just been generated and they're concepts right now. But we would like to get your either feedback specifically on this bench or that layout or this layout, but also to get authorized to be acting on behalf of the town to talk with DOT about this. Without putting everything in stone and final forming right now, we'd like to be able to talk to DOT because they have a lot of information on design factors, other vendors that we could look to for costs and further specifications. So it's kind of a matter of timing as well, that we wanted to really get your buy-in on this as a concept. And then permission to work with DOT on that. And of course, we'd be keeping you and the town manager informed with all the communications along the way. So we're not really looking to the town for financial support for this, but for support for the idea of further designing these options, of which, if they proceed, we'll be bringing them back to you.
Well, as you know, we're in the budget season right now, so.
Which is why I said we're not asking the town for funding.
You're not asking right now.
That's correct.
You're talking about a year from now. You'll be asking us.
Well,
possibly.
I'm only speaking for myself, but I believe most of the friends are very sensitive to the situation, economic situation in town. So I think what we're looking to do is get permission to start talking to DOT, talk with DOT about what they feel they could contribute to these additional expenses, and then go out and do fundraising.
Well, if I remember, I go back to the very beginning of the whole concept of this down here. I believe that MDOT made it very plain and very clear that any of these amenities would be subject to the town. It would be at our dollar, not MDOT. But in all honesty, if you choose to want to contact MDOT and get their advice or whatever have you, I have no problem with you doing that.
We want to do it on behalf of the town and in full transparency in terms of communications, things like that, so.
Catherine, just a minute, Jen.
I think there might be a problem with a group from town speaking on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and the town as a whole. I just have a problem with that. It isn't that you wouldn't do a good job. I just think it might be better if we asked our town manager, if you have a couple of questions, perhaps he could call DOT.
I haven't actually met DOT people, and I'm hoping to meet them again.
I would feel more comfortable with that. We'd certainly keep you up to date on what happens from that, and then we can go from there. It's just a suggestion.
No, I appreciate the concern with that, and I think that rather than presenting to you a group of people, we would designate Peter, because he's fairly skilled at this design work, so to work with John. So, yeah, we're not proposing the whole Friends group.
Kim, if Peter was willing to work with John, since he's a landscape architect, I think that would be great. But I just wanted to say that I love the idea. I love these concepts. They're really great. And thank you. Thank you so much for putting this effort. These are designs. I can't imagine how much designs like this would cost, and I imagine you donated your time and effort, so thank you so much. Maybe you could do something with the fundraising, like have people, buy a bench and get a little placard with their name on it, something like that. I just think it's really wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this, because a 30-foot sidewalk sounds really wide when you think this room's 20 feet. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking we're going to need those little push carts where people can bend.
Okay, Kim.
Jim?
As you know, I'm honored to this project from start to finish. And actually, MDOT conceded in May of 2018, Ernie Martin said at the public meeting, we're doing everything that comes out. Somebody, actually it was Beth Maxwell, asked about the planters and tables and benches in the pictures. I thought this was mentioned, that's what Wiscasset wanted, and Wiscasset would have to supply all that. Mr. Martin replied, we're doing everything that comes out of our design. I mean, if it's planters, if it's benches, if it's tables, if it's lights, we're supplying that. We're paying for that as part of our designs.
We're paying for the signals. We're going to maintain those signals for the future. Once they're in place, we're going to maintain them. And they stayed with that. And we did a survey monkey. Everyone remembers the survey monkey, where we picked out the features we liked. Benches were in there, planters were in there, trees were in there. And I hate to say this, but some members who were on the Friends group were on the pack that let them all go away. And the only reason there are trees here was after the fact. Ms. Roberts here fought to get trees included back in the design, so we got a small pittance of trees reinstituted here. But we gave up the blank benches, we gave up all the things that we would have not had to pay a dime for. Anything that's going to cost the town's budget, I'm absolutely opposed to. If people want to raise money for it, and as Kim said, dedicate a bench and things like many other communities do, but again, we missed that vote.
Well, I agree with Catherine. I think we should let John maybe speak with someone at MDOT, get a feel for their opinions as to if they would be considering putting the benches and everything back in, and then take it from there.
I haven't met anybody from DOT yet.
Hi, I have a question only because I have a handicapped son, but I also know there's a lot of elderly people that use, whether they use walkers. Does any in this design have a ramp type of thing when you go, because it is downtown and you...
There are, I believe
I
there
haven't
are
seen nothing.
ramps.
There are ramps at every corner, at every crosswalk.
But I'm talking about when you go, you know how the bank is, and you go, is there enough room so that electric wheelchair or a portable wheelchair or a walker or anything? Because I couldn't see anything. Thank you.
There's enough room, but the grades are in excess of 8%. So.
And how wide is that? You need at least a 36.
Yeah, we have plenty of
36,
room.
48.
We have 30 feet.
So, yeah, right, but what I'm saying is, because if you put tables and planters and all that, is that going to interfere with that?
Not at all, not at all. The widths are there, but like I say, the grades are in excess of 8%, which usually requires a railing. If it's under 5%, it doesn't need a railing. So this area here is in excess of 8%, as is this area here. The area along the storefronts will be fully accessible with regard to grades and width. But these areas out here are not fully accessible because they're in excess.
So you're saying where the pink is that accessible for handicap, or the brown? Which area are you talking about?
Brown are buildings, pink is sidewalk.
Okay. And then when you go down around, that has a slope so that it's accessible for whether it's a wheelchair, walker, or anything.
It's in excess of 5%, so it usually requires a railing if it is. So those areas are not fully accessible. But they are in front of the storefronts.
Okay, so we will let you handle it.
I agree with you completely. I think it's only fair to give John an opportunity to contact the people that he's going to have to work with and speak with them and then advise us.
Because they are starting to ramp up their project. They're starting the 24th.
But he hasn't had an opportunity, as he said, to even meet these people, and it's very important that you do that, have an opportunity to do that.
So I'm hearing that the select board is in favor of the concept of site amenities, and that you authorize John to work with MDOT and I can assist?
That's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that we're going to the way I understand it, contacting MDOT to see what...
I haven't watched this thing closely. I mean, it's changed so many times. I would hesitate to say I had any idea what the final
I think to find out whether it's even in the project, has it been taken out of the project?
Oh, it's not in the project anymore. I can guarantee that. But it doesn't mean we you as a board or as a town can't go back to them and ask them if it can be put back in.
Well, that's what we're asking John to do.
Good.
As far as, am I correct, Board, that that's what we're asking him to do? To see if it can be put back into the project or not at this point in time?
Right, and we received recent information from Ernie a couple months ago, that the benches and the trash receptacles were not in the plan, because of all the, as Jim described.
Well, I think at this point in time, it's worth a phone call. It's worth a meeting.
Exactly,
at this
exactly.
point in
No,
time.
thank you very much. That's progress.
They've said no in the past and then come around to a certain way of thinking, but we'll
Well,
see.
I can be charming one more time, so I might even call Leslie and
John's
New people at the top.
Yes. Pardon?
Said there's new people at the top.
That's true. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Terrific. They really are, very nice.
The town manager's report.
Okay, I'll keep this very brief. Just advise you that Ted Snowden, we're getting good at it. Ted Snowden has been appointed as Director of Public Works effective March 17. In your package, you have correspondence from John Carroll of CMP, who corrected a statement from somebody on the other side, which you've got. I was going to mention clock tower repair, which I've already covered. Today I got an email from Lieutenant Murphy over at the sheriff's office, wanting to talk about the, I'm going to say affordable care, animal control office. He wants to talk with the towns that are using the service. So
Meeting's still in session. I can't hear.
okay, what is your last meeting?
Something about an animal?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't make me laugh, please. Animal control officer, as you know, the county has provided that service to quite a few towns. I think maybe 10 out of 16 at this point. Wiscasset has relied on them, and Lieutenant Murphy said that needs to talk to us. Of course, he says it's getting a little more expensive, and so on and so forth. So he wants to meet with as many towns as possible at one time in one location, and I will respond to him and follow up with that and report back to the board. The only other thing, I was talking to Kyle Coolidge from Wright Pierce about possible grants for wastewater treatment, and he's actually coming along tomorrow morning with Ms. Gaith, and we'll be talking about finding out if there are any programs that we could qualify for in a timeline that we can meet. So in a nutshell, that's where I am. Okay, so I'm good.
Yeah, so could we go back to the town clock for a moment?
Sorry,
The town clock,
oh yes.
we're not going to act on this tonight.
No, I would like to, maybe with Mr. Putnam and Mr. Cahoon, I think his name is, go look at the building itself before proceeding with some pretty sensitive kind of mechanical work. If it's going to be wet, if there's going to be construction, I don't want to kind of compromise the clock itself.
Okay, the only thing I was going to ask, under the scope of work, there's nothing listed here as to they would come down and fix the clock if it loses time, which it does all the time. Can we cover that in this one?
Yeah, I certainly could make a note so when I do talk to them. Let's see, 15, that. Well, I think that buried in some of those technical language is an indication that they would be expecting the clock to keep good time. And when your expansion units adjust if necessary, cables, diameters, I think that would imply that they're trying to get it accurate, and that's how I read that. So I think they've got it kind of covered. I think. I haven't met these.
No, I mean, just ask them if you cover it, because it does lose time, and we do get citizens calling up and reminding us.
Okay, I will contact them.
I think it's a constant work in progress. You know, we're trying this and that.
Okay,
There's a
I'll
little-
follow up on that.
There's a little booklet down there sitting on the floor that tells you how to make adjustments if it's gaining or losing time.
Oh, okay.
And also, you know, a chart for the maintenance. And Woody Freeman showed me, made a lot of entries in that and showed me how to make that happen. If you've got time to do it, you can adjust that until it's right. The issue that really bogged that clock down was when the building changed hands and it wasn't possible to go in and make adjustments anytime you wanted to.
Do we have somebody that does that?
Well, different people have done it, but if you can't get in there, it's pretty damn hard to do.
Well, I do have a phone number now, I do have a contact person, and I do have to get this maintenance agreement signed before July 1st, so we have a little bit of time to get our ducks in a row.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry, that was it.
Are you done?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We have the assessor agent recommends abatements. Carol M. Jones, map R03, lot 54-3-1 for $347.99. Dennis Gothier, map R04, lot 11C, $152.49. Scott Connors, map R01, lot 035-CO2, $318.67. Gilbert H. Rhines, map R05, lot 51-A2, $95.80. And Sam Patterson, map R07, lot 039-19 for $146.63.
I'll move the recommended abatements as presented.
I'll second it.
And I would like to thank our treasurer for an explanation on those. I had a question last time between the assessors agents and the tax collectors. And she explained it to me that the assessors agent does the first year and then we do anything beyond that.
Thank you. All those in favor of the abatements? 5-0, thank you. Okay, other board business, and I put down there, vote on CMP, about putting that on the agenda for next time. What is the board's pleasure?
If they've got false statements, things that we didn't say, that stuff needs to be removed.
Yes?
I think I was at that meeting back in 2017 because I was prepping to run for select board. And I feel like everybody was pretty, I could be wrong, but I'll go back and look on YouTube. But I think everyone was pretty enthusiastic about the idea of a potential to increase the tax on, that's what he said, right? When the CMP guy was here, he talked about any work that they did for the corridor would increase the value of the property. And the select board at that time, I think, was enthusiastic about supporting something that could generate more revenue for the town. And I mean, I would want to go back and look at YouTube.
I don't see how it would increase revenue for the
Because
town.
the value of the line, they pay taxes on the line that they own here, and so they're going to make improvements to that line.
But I think Wiscasset is only, 6.4 miles? I think that's what they said.
I'm just telling you, this was the nature of the discussion at that meeting. I remember.
And for the sake of discussion, I will accept all of that, but.
Well, I want to go back and look at it.
But in the last year and a half, a lot has changed.
Right, I just wanted to say that that's not, Marion's letter at that time was not inaccurate or a false representation of the board. I think she...
Well, then I would say the reverse, that maybe his presentation was a little misleading.
Catherine?
I think Mr. Carroll's presentation, at that point in time, they were in the proposal phase of the whole thing. And initially, that's when he came and talked to us about the project. And if CMP was awarded the project, this is what the town could expect for whatever benefits, etc. And it was just sort of an intro. And then, of course, after that, the first time around, they did not get the proposal. Another company did, and then they ended up getting it because of whatever happens and all of that. So it's kind of like two different phases of discussions, I think. So Kim is right.
I remember that meeting too, Kim,
Yeah,
and
she's
I think you represented it pretty accurately. But the gentleman here tonight asked us to put it on the agenda to vote and rescind our action. If we didn't take any action, there's nothing to rescind, and I don't really want to open up a new vote because I won't live long enough to get enough information to make an intelligent decision on this. Because every time somebody speaks, they just want to rebut the person that spoke in front of them. And I can't see where it's a real issue for the town of Wiscasset to be put on the agenda to vote for something that, frankly, I'd be willing to admit I don't understand completely.
I agree with you. But
Well, I could agree with all of that, so why would we want to be left on record as sort of supposing it?
Well, if the record is wrong.
Well, okay, but we need to correct that record so people reading it won't be misinterpreted as to how.
If the Board of Selectmen who's represented is taking a vote on something that they didn't vote on, I don't think that even justifies a response.
Well, if people are reading it and thinking, oh, they think it's great, don't you want it to be at least accurate?
Well, I'm sure somebody else would just write something that was not accurate.
I just wanted to say that the board's enthusiasm was for an RFP, which, as Catherine pointed out, CMP didn't even get. So the support was not for the existing project now, but it was for an RFP even prior to that. And also, just as a side note, the first YouTube video is October 17th, 2017. It's like the meeting after that one. So unless we keep that stuff here,
no, we were not recording at that time.
And just missed it by one meeting.
But in listening to Bob and Kim, yes, they came and they presented information to us. We were receptive. That's about it. We were not asked at that point in time, do you back this project or anything. This board, as far as I know, has never been asked that question, except by Marty Fox tonight. And I agree, I don't want to open up that can of worms right now. I haven't been asked for my vote, and I don't want to have to do it.
All right, could we ask that Marian's letter be removed from those websites?
I think that is correct. That I would agree on. I think John...
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, I agree with that full-heartedly. I think John needs to contact Central Maine Power and find out exactly how to get that off of there.
If the board directs me, I will do that.
Well, I'll make a motion that we direct the town managers to remove any references to the town of Wiscasset from their website.
I will second that, because I do agree with you on that, because I do not want people to think that Wiscasset board voted for something that we did not vote for.
Okay. Just for clarification, we're talking about all references to Wiscasset at any point or anything?
I think that particular letter.
Specifically the letter, that's the
I think just the letter, because that's saying that we voted. That's stated in that we voted and we did not vote.
That's Mary's letter.
See, basically they could say, being devil's advocate here, Mr. Carroll could say, I made a presentation to the Wiscasset Board of Selectmen. Yeah. I think he'd find it very hard to remove that because that's a matter of public record. However, if the board doesn't think the letter that they're quoting accurately represents the sentiment of the board at the time, I think that'd be an easier one to clean out, in my view. But it's up to the board.
We never saw it.
We don't even saw it.
I don't remember seeing the letter. Do you?
No, I don't.
I don't remember. Yes, Ken?
I just wanted to say that, like, you can ask them to take that down, but the way, I don't want to sound smart or sassy, but it's out there. Like, you can't shred something off the internet, like, you can never get rid of it. It's out there.
Or maybe we could request a disclaimer of some sort or something.
Even so, I mean, they, you
No, I
know,
know.
even Facebook and YouTube can't take stuff down, like, once it's out there, it's,
Well, it's out there, but they can take it off their website. I mean, they're using it for their purposes.
Okay, so.
Whatever you can do.
Basically, whatever you can do.
Whatever.
Get that
All
information out.
right, okay. Short.
What's the motion?
Direct the town manager to contact
Central Maine
Power specifically to remove any references that implies support for the ongoing project from onset to present, something like that. You get that?
Yeah.
Sounds good? All right. I guess if you're.
Okay, I'll second that motion for you. All those in favor? Okay. Any other board business? Yes.
Can I have just 5 minutes? I know it's been long.
I think maybe I can give you 5 minutes.
Thank you. So you asked at the last meeting about monkey see, monkey do.
Yes.
So there are 4 meters out there. The water department had gone out there. They had power washed the building, and evidently Chris felt that they didn't understand the consumption of water. And he feels, I believe I can paraphrase, that no abatement should be recognized. I forwarded that information on to John as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I do apologize for the length of my monthly report. However, I think you really need to be aware of what we're doing. Marches will be equally long, as if not more. And hopefully we can get to the point where it is proactive instead of reactive. Hopefully tomorrow a new effluent flow ultrasonic meter will be installed. The vendor was nice enough to order the materials without really having a verbal authorization from me. We talked about it, but he ordered it anyway, and I'm hoping the board has no problem in me doing that. I've talked with the DEP because those flow measurements are part of a report that goes in, so we're kind of in a tough spot there. Next month, or the next meeting, I would like to talk about what the septage fees are. I'll provide you some information of some surrounding areas, what those are. And let's see, I'd also like to know if the board, because this wastewater operates under a different thing than I'm used to, so there's different ways to access money. So I'm wondering if the board would contemplate giving a loan to the wastewater department, a loan, okay, from the Payson Fund, somewhere around 25 grand. I'm just asking. So maybe we could discuss that at the next meeting.
Asked to be put on, asked to talk to John, get everything in a row, and bring it on.
Yeah, I have some information. I have a chance to look at it.
And put it on the next agenda.
And the monkey see, monkey do request.
Bring it back.
Bring it back.
Yes, we'll take care of that too.
I just had a question about that. I didn't quite understand what you said about that the water, the excessive water that was used to power wash the building?
That's what Chris believes when he went out there and talked with them. So there are 4 different meters. One is for the business, 3 are for the apartments. 1 apartment is vacant, and 2 others are inhabited. But that's the information, because I asked him to forward what his findings were, because I didn't want to have to pass along so he responded back to me and he said, yeah, they power washed that whole building, so evidently they weren't aware of what the water consumption is. That's what his feeling was.
Yeah, I guess what I didn't understand about that is if they power wash the building, then that water wouldn't have gone into the...
It goes through the water meter though.
It goes to the water meter, yes,
Yeah.
but then it would have just simply ended up on the ground.
That's their issue.
If I go outside and water my garden all day long, I'm gonna get billed for it.
Oh, yeah, no, I realize that.
Unless you have a separate water meter for doing that flow, being able to prove whether it didn't go back to the sewer.
So our recommendation to them would be if they're gonna use that water outside, they need to
Get it
do it
metered.
separately.
Yep. And then one other thing, I'd like to have the board's approval that if, at the end of March, if I think there's $5,000 excess in the budget come the end of the budget year, I'd like to hire Ted Berry to come in and do some wet well, cleaning of wet wells before the traffic really picks up on Route 1.
Again, that has to come on an agenda.
Okay,
All right.
so next
time.
meeting. Yep,
You bring your 3 articles and we will discuss them.
very good.
That sounds like something that probably should go up to bid. If
Uh,
you're talking $5,000.
I realize that, but I don't know of all the sewer places around, I don't know of anybody that's hired other than Ted Berry because it's a special machine to do that. I think everyone I know in the mid-coast area uses Ted Berry. They're a very reputable firm, yeah, so. I mean, I can, but I don't know of any other companies that do that. It's a special truck, it's like a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 truck. But I will do whatever you wish. Thank you for your time.
Make sure you put it on the agenda for the next time. Any other board business? I would like to ask the reporters if you just make a note in your column that nomination papers are out for, let's see, we have vacancies on the select board, school board, budget committee, and
Historic
they're due.
Preservation Committee and Appeals Board.
Yes, thank you.
Good thing.
I think they're due back, what, April 11th?
That sounds right.
I think that's when they're due back. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, Linda can tell you exactly what you can call me. I'll have the answer when I want it.
I appreciate it, thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Thank you.